Juan Pablo Montero, at 45 years old, was an imposing figure in the small town of San Miguel. His elegant demeanor and piercing gaze commanded respect wherever he went. As the owner of the largest ranch in the region, he was known for his generosity and sense of justice. Workers admired him, and neighbors considered him a pillar of the community. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. However, behind his facade of success and integrity, Juan Pablo carried an invisible burden. On silent nights, when the weight of his memories became unbearable, he would retreat to his office, gazing at an old photograph hidden in the drawer of his desk. His normally firm eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and regret. This secret, buried for 2 decades, was like a shadow that followed him, threatening to stain everything he had built. Juan Pablo fought daily to keep this part of his past hidden, fearing that its revelation could not only destroy his reputation, but also the happiness of his family. The contrast between his exemplary public life and his inner torment created a constant tension, fueling his determination to protect those he loved at all costs. Maria Montero was the heart of the family. At 40, her serene beauty and warm personality captivated everyone. Born into a humble family, Maria earned respect for her hard work and boundless compassion. As Juan Pablo's wife, she was not just a partner, but a stabilizing force in his life. In the community, Maria was known for her involvement in social projects, always ready to lend a hand to those in need. At home, she was the emotional pillar, capable of calming Juan Pablo's internal storms with a simple touch or understanding look. Her keen intuition made her aware when something troubled her husband, even when he tried to hide it. With Rosalinda, her teenage daughter, Maria was both a confidant and a mentor. She perfectly balanced the role of friend and mother, guiding her daughter with wisdom and unconditional love. Maria firmly believed in the power of education and encouraged Rosalinda to pursue her dreams, constantly reminding her of her inner strength. Despite the challenges they faced, Maria maintained a positive attitude, serving as the light that illuminated the darkest days for the Montero family. Her strength was not just physical, but a resilience of spirit that inspired everyone around her. The diagnosis struck like lightning on a clear day. Maria, always so vibrant and full of life, now faced a battle against aggressive cancer. The news shook the foundations of the Montero family, revealing how fragile and precious life truly is. In the first days after the diagnosis, a heavy silence hung over the house. Juan Pablo, usually so strong and decisive, seemed lost, struggling to accept the reality of the situation. Rosalinda, at only 16, oscillated between moments of denial and outbursts of raw emotion. However, as the initial shock wore off, something extraordinary began to happen. The already strong family bonds deepened in unexpected ways. Juan Pablo, faced with the possibility of losing Maria, set aside his usual reserve and openly expressed his love and fear. He began to cherish every moment with her, rediscovering the beauty in the small things that had once gone unnoticed. Rosalinda, on the other hand, matured almost overnight. She took on household responsibilities, caring for her mother with touching dedication. Conversations between mother and daughter gained new depth, with Maria sharing stories of her youth and dreams for Rosalinda's future. One particularly difficult night, when the effects of chemotherapy left Maria exhausted and vulnerable, she called Juan Pablo for an intimate conversation. With the soft light of the lamp illuminating her pale face, Maria held her husband's hands with surprising strength. "Juan," she began, her voice trembling but determined, "I need you to listen to me carefully." Her eyes, though tired, shone with fierce intensity. "No matter what happens to me, I promise I will do everything I can to protect our Rosalinda. She is our greatest treasure, and my love for her transcends any physical limits." Juan Pablo, fighting back tears, tried to interrupt her, but Maria continued, "I know you carry a weight from the past, my love, and I know you fear that it could affect our daughter one day. But I want you to know that even if I'm not here physically, my spirit and my love will be a fortress around her." Maria's promise was not just words, it was a solemn vow, sealed with the love of a mother willing to challenge even death to fulfill it. Juan Pablo, touched by his wife's strength and devotion, felt a mix of gratitude and guilt. He knew that Maria had always been his rock, but at that moment, he understood the true depth of her love and commitment. Over the years, Rosalinda blossomed under the watchful and loving gaze of her parents. Since she was little, she had observed, with curious eyes and an open heart, the interactions between Maria and Juan Pablo, silently absorbing lessons about love, respect, and resilience. Maria's strength was a constant source of inspiration for Rosalinda. She saw how her mother faced every challenge with grace and determination, whether it was managing the demands of the ranch or organizing charitable events in the community. Maria had a gift for making others feel special, and Rosalinda aspired to have that same ability. Juan Pablo's dedication, on the other hand, manifested in more subtle but equally profound ways. Rosalinda noticed how her father worked tirelessly to ensure the well-being of the family and the ranch workers. She admired his integrity in business and his compassion for the less fortunate. As she grew, Rosalinda began to embody the best qualities of both her parents. From her mother, she inherited empathy and inner strength. From her father, a sense of responsibility and determination. She became a balanced young woman, combining Maria's warm personality with Juan Pablo's reflective seriousness. The dynamic between Juan Pablo, Maria, and Rosalinda was like a perfectly choreographed dance, each playing a vital role in the family's balance. Their daily interactions were marked by small gestures of affection and mutual understanding, creating an environment of love and security. On Sunday mornings, the family had a tradition of having breakfast together on the porch, enjoying the gentle breeze and the view of the green fields. These moments were filled with laughter, animated discussions about books or community events, and plans for the future. It was in these relaxed moments that their bond grew even stronger. Juan Pablo, usually reserved in public, showed a lighter and more playful side with his family. He loved telling stories of his youth, making Maria and Rosalinda laugh with his adventures and mischief. Maria, in turn, was the natural mediator, able to interpret Juan Pablo's silences and translate Rosalinda's turbulent emotions. Growing up between these two pillars of strength and love, Rosalinda developed a deep understanding of the complexity of human relationships. She learned to value her father's honesty and her mother's compassion, integrating these qualities into her own personality. One quiet afternoon, as the family enjoyed a picnic by the stream that ran through their property, a seemingly trivial incident triggered an intriguing reaction in Juan Pablo. An old family friend, Don Ernesto, passed by on horseback, greeting them cheerfully. As he casually mentioned a recent trip to the capital, Don Ernesto made an enigmatic reference. "Juan Pablo, remember that summer in Mexico City? Who would have thought that after all these years, that place still holds so many secrets, right?" Juan Pablo's face visibly paled, and his hands trembled slightly as he held his glass. Maria, noticing the sudden change in her husband, quickly changed the subject, but not before exchanging a significant glance with him. Rosalinda, now 17 and increasingly perceptive, noticed the sudden tension. She watched as her father, normally so controlled, seemed momentarily lost in distant and disturbing thoughts. The mention of the capital and the mysterious summer planted a seed of curiosity in her mind. In the days that followed, Rosalinda noticed whispers between her parents, conversations that abruptly ended when she entered the room. Juan Pablo became more introspective, and occasionally she caught him staring at the horizon with an expression of deep concern. This seemingly insignificant event opened a door to a hidden past, leaving the reader intrigued about the secrets Juan Pablo so zealously guarded and how they might affect the Montero family's future. At her best friend's birthday party, Rosalinda, now 22, suddenly found herself face to face with a man who seemed to have stepped out of a romance novel. Esteban Vega, with his piercing green eyes and captivating smile, immediately caught her attention. He approached with quiet confidence, offering her a glass of champagne. "Rosalinda, isn't it?" he said, his voice as smooth as velvet. "I've heard a lot about you. I'm Esteban." The conversation flowed naturally, revealing that Esteban was a successful businessman, newly arrived in town. He spoke eloquently of his travels, painting vivid pictures of exotic places that Rosalinda had only dreamed of visiting. However, behind his charm, there was something Rosalinda couldn't quite decipher. At times, when he thought no one was watching, a shadow seemed to cross Esteban's face. His answers about his past were vague, always skillfully redirecting the conversation. This air of mystery, far from driving Rosalinda away, only intensified her curiosity. She found herself irresistibly drawn to him, eager to uncover the secrets that Esteban seemed to guard so carefully. The romance between Rosalinda and Esteban developed at a dizzying pace. Every encounter was an adventure, every conversation a discovery. Esteban constantly surprised her with grand gestures, dinners at exclusive restaurants, helicopter rides at sunset, extravagant gifts that arrived without warning. In just 3 months, Rosalinda found herself completely swept up. Esteban had a way of making her feel like the most special woman in the world. His sweet words and promises of a bright future together intoxicated her with happiness. When Esteban proposed to her, under the stars on a luxurious yacht, Rosalinda didn't hesitate. The diamond ring on her finger seemed to seal a modern fairy tale. The wedding was planned to take place in just 2 months, a decision that surprised everyone, especially her parents. Juan Pablo and Maria expressed concern about the rush, but Rosalinda, blinded by love, interpreted it as fear of losing her. The ceremony was a dazzling event, worthy of the pages of celebrity magazines. While Rosalinda radiated happiness alongside her new husband, a small voice in the back of her mind questioned whether she truly knew the man she had just married. In the months following the wedding, Maria carefully observed the interactions between her daughter and her new son-in-law. At first, she tried to dismiss her concerns, attributing them to overprotective maternal instincts. However, small details began to accumulate, fueling her unease. Maria noticed how Esteban subtly controlled conversations during family dinners, always deflecting questions about his past or his family. She noticed the way his eyes would narrow almost imperceptibly when Rosalinda spoke to other men, even if they were old family friends. One day, during an unannounced visit to the young couple's home, Maria caught Esteban in a heated phone conversation. When he saw her, he quickly ended the call, his face a mask of forced calm. "Business," he explained with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maria also noticed changes in Rosalinda. Her daughter, once so open and expressive, now seemed more reserved, always glancing at Esteban before speaking, as if seeking his approval. These observations created a knot of worry in Maria's stomach. She struggled between the desire to protect her daughter and the fear of overreacting. After all, Esteban was charming and attentive in public. But Maria's maternal instincts were sounding an alarm she couldn't ignore. As the months passed, a series of seemingly insignificant events began to disturb the apparent harmony in Rosalinda and Esteban's home. The first incident occurred during a dinner with friends. Rosalinda accidentally knocked over a glass of wine, staining the tablecloth. Esteban's reaction, though contained, showed disproportionate irritation, his eyes flashing with anger for a brief moment, before he composed himself with a forced smile. On another occasion, Rosalinda couldn't find her car keys. After a frantic search, Esteban found them in a place where she swore she had looked several times. The initial relief gave way to a strange sense of doubt. One day, Rosalinda received a call from a friend asking why she had canceled their lunch plans. Confused, Rosalinda insisted that she hadn't done so. Later, Esteban casually mentioned that he had called to cancel on her behalf, claiming she wasn't feeling well, something Rosalinda didn't remember telling him. These small incidents individually could be explained, but together they began to form an unsettling pattern. Rosalinda found herself questioning her own memory and perception. A disturbing feeling that something was not right began to settle in her mind. Determined to share her concerns, Maria invited Rosalinda for lunch, just the two of them. In the cozy cafe they had frequented since Rosalinda was a teenager, Maria gently tried to broach the subject. "Sweetheart, you seem different lately. Is everything all right between you and Esteban?" Maria asked, her voice filled with maternal concern. Rosalinda, visibly tense, forced a smile. "Of course, Mom. We're fine. Why wouldn't we be?" Maria hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "It's just that some things I've noticed are worrying me. The way Esteban sometimes reacts, how he seems to control—" "Control?" Rosalinda interrupted, her voice rising an octave. "Mom, please. Esteban loves me. He only wants what's best for me. Maria tried again, mentioning the incidents she had noticed, but each word seemed to increase Rosalinda's resistance. The young woman became more and more defensive, accusing her mother of being overprotective and not understanding her relationship. "You're just jealous because you never had a love like this with Dad," Rosalinda exclaimed, standing up abruptly. The words hung in the air, heavy and painful. Maria, shocked, watched as her daughter hurried out of the cafe, leaving behind not only an untouched cup of coffee, but also a growing chasm between them. In the weeks following the tense conversation at the cafe, Maria noticed a drastic change in Rosalinda's behavior. Her daughter, once so present and communicative, became increasingly distant. Phone calls, once daily, became rare and brief. Rosalinda began missing Sunday lunches at her parents' house, always with vague excuses about commitments with Esteban. Maria watched helplessly as Rosalinda withdrew not only from her, but from all her friends and family. The few times they did meet, Rosalinda seemed like a shadow of her former self, her once bright eyes now dull and evasive. She had lost weight, and her previously confident posture was now hunched and defensive. During a rare visit to her parents' home, Maria noticed finger marks on Rosalinda's arm. When questioned, her daughter quickly pulled down her sleeve, mumbling something about bumping into a door. Maria's heart tightened with every new sign that something was deeply wrong. She shared her concerns with Juan Pablo, who initially tried to reassure her, but soon found himself equally disturbed by their daughter's transformation. Maria felt as though she were watching a slow-motion shipwreck, unable to reach out and save her precious daughter from the turbulent waters in which she seemed to be drowning. One Sunday, when Rosalinda and Esteban finally attended the family lunch, an unexpected incident occurred. While helping to clear the dishes, Maria noticed an envelope that had fallen near Esteban's coat. Instinctively, she picked it up, intending to return it. However, the name on the envelope stopped her in her tracks. It was not Esteban Vega, but Eduardo Salazar. With her heart racing, Maria hesitated. Her conscience battled with her growing suspicion. Taking advantage of a moment when she was alone, she carefully opened the envelope. Inside, she found a short letter, but its content was alarming. "Eduardo, the plan is in motion. The inheritance will be ours soon. Keep up the disguise and don't let anyone suspect. Remember, Rosalinda is just a means to an end. See." Maria's hands trembled as she reread the words, her world crumbling around her. Who was Eduardo Salazar? And who was C? The mention of the inheritance and the cold tone regarding Rosalinda sent chills down her spine. Hearing footsteps approaching, Maria quickly replaced the letter in the envelope and accidentally let it fall near Esteban's coat again. Her mind was racing, torn between the horror of the discovery and the urgency of protecting her daughter. The tension in the air was palpable, and Maria knew that a storm was about to break over the Montero family. The dawn found Maria restless, her heart heavy with an unnameable worry. Weeks of silence from Rosalinda had turned into a deafening scream in her maternal mind. Unable to bear the anguish any longer, Maria decided to act. Without telling Juan Pablo or calling Rosalinda, she grabbed her car keys and headed to her daughter's house. The usually tranquil drive felt endless. Every red light was torture, every turn an eternity. As she drove, Maria mentally replayed her last encounters with Rosalinda. The vacant looks, the evasive answers, the subtle tremor in her hands, all the signs she had tried to ignore now screamed in her conscience. Parking in front of Rosalinda's house, Maria hesitated. What if she was overreacting? What if her daughter became furious at this intrusion? But something stronger than reason pushed her forward. With her heart racing, she got out of the car and walked up to the door. The silence emanating from the house was oppressive. Maria took a deep breath, raised her hand, and rang the doorbell, bracing herself for whatever was to come. After repeatedly ringing the doorbell with no response, Maria used the spare key Rosalinda had given her months ago. As she entered, she was met by a deathly silence, broken only by a muffled sound coming from upstairs. Climbing the stairs with her heart in her throat, Maria followed the noise to the room Rosalinda had turned into an art studio. The door was ajar, and what she saw left her paralyzed with shock. Rosalinda was there, But she wasn't the Rosalinda Maria knew. Her daughter, usually so graceful and composed, was in a nearly feral state. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes glazed and fixed on the canvas before her as she painted with frantic intensity. Her movements were rapid and erratic, her hands stained with paint up to her elbows. Most disturbing, however, was the expression on her face, a mixture of terror and ecstasy, as if she were trapped between two worlds. She mumbled unintelligible words, completely unaware of her mother's presence. Maria, overcoming her initial shock, entered the room slowly. "Rosalinda?" she called softly, but her daughter didn't respond, continuing to paint as if her life depended on it. It was then that Maria looked at the canvas and felt the world spin around her. The painting that was taking shape under Rosalinda's frenzied hands was a nightmare vision. Vibrant colors and chaotic brushstrokes merged to create a scene that Maria instantly recognized, though she had never seen it before. At the center of the canvas, a young man, unmistakably Juan Pablo, was kneeling, his hands stained red. Around him, menacing shadows seemed to close in, while in the background, a burning building illuminated the night sky. Every detail was vivid and disturbing. The terror in Juan Pablo's eyes, the smoke that seemed almost real, the sinister glow of the flames. Maria felt her legs weaken. This scene, this terrible night that Juan Pablo had mentioned only once, in a moment of extreme vulnerability, was now exposed on the canvas. A secret buried for decades, known only to her and her husband, had somehow found its way into Rosalinda's mind. Questions tormented Maria. How could Rosalinda know about this? How could she paint with such precision an event that had happened before she was even born? The realization hit Maria like lightning. Esteban. Somehow he was behind this. But how? And why? As she watched her daughter continue to paint in a trance, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in Maria's mind. Rosalinda's strange behavior, her isolation, the changes in her personality, all pointed to insidious manipulation. She thought of the enigmatic letter she had found, addressed to someone named Eduardo Salazar. The mention of the inheritance and the cold tone regarding Rosalinda now took on a new and terrible perspective. Maria realized that Esteban was not who he claimed to be. Somehow, he was using Rosalinda, perhaps even controlling her mind, to access deeply buried secrets from the Montero family's past. Fear gave way to determination. Maria knew she had to act quickly to protect her daughter and expose Esteban. But how could she do that without putting Rosalinda in even greater danger? At that moment, as if in answer to a silent prayer, the phone rang. It was Juan Pablo, worried about Maria's prolonged absence. Taking advantage of the distraction, Maria rushed upstairs, determined to get Rosalinda out of there and to safety. As she struggled to wake her daughter from her trance-like state, Maria knew she was in the middle of a much larger battle than she had ever imagined. She would have to navigate between truths and lies, protect her daughter, and confront her husband's past. With Rosalinda semi-conscious in her arms and the sound of Esteban's footsteps approaching, Maria made a silent promise. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost, and save her family from this web of secrets and revenge. Dawn found Maria and Rosalinda in a small cafe on the outskirts of town, far from Esteban's watchful eyes. The two women, exhausted after a night of fleeing and revelations, now faced the difficult task of unraveling the web of lies that surrounded them. Rosalinda, still dazed, struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the situation. "Mom, how could I have been so blind?" she whispered, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. Maria held her daughter's hands, her gaze conveying strength and understanding. "My love, Esteban deceived us all, but now together we're going to uncover the truth." Determined to confront Esteban, they devised a plan. Rosalinda, summoning all her courage, agreed to meet with him one last time, with Maria hidden nearby. The goal was twofold: to understand Esteban's true motives and, if possible, gather proof of his manipulation. The next day, in a public park, the confrontation took place. Rosalinda, appearing vulnerable, approached Esteban. "Why, Esteban? Why use me like this?" Esteban, surprised by the direct approach, hesitated, It was in this moment of weakness that Maria emerged from her hiding place, recorder in hand. "It's time to tell the whole truth, Esteban," she declared firmly. Cornered, Esteban began to reveal his story, a narrative of betrayal, loss, and revenge that spanned decades. As mother and daughter listened, a new understanding began to form, not just about Esteban, but about the past that had haunted them for so long. Esteban's words flowed like a turbulent river, revealing a story that no one could have imagined. Juan Pablo and Esteban, then known as Eduardo, were more than just friends in their youth. They were partners in a smuggling scheme that promised quick wealth. "That night in Mexico City," Esteban began, his voice trembling with contained emotion, "everything went wrong. The warehouse where we kept the goods caught fire. My father was there, checking the shipment." Maria and Rosalinda listened in horror as Esteban described the chaos of that night. Juan Pablo, in a panic, had fled, leaving Esteban behind to deal with the consequences. Esteban's father died in the fire, and young Eduardo was arrested, taking all the blame. "I spent years in prison, planning my revenge," Esteban continued. "When I got out, I found out that Juan Pablo had built a perfect life, as if nothing had happened. He had you, Rosalinda, and an impeccable reputation." The revelation hit Rosalinda like a bolt of lightning. Her father, the man she had always seen as a model of integrity, had a dark past she had never imagined. Maria, though shocked, found the strength to question. But why use Rosalinda? Why not confront Juan Pablo directly? Esteban laughed bitterly. "Because the best revenge isn't to destroy a man, but everything he loves. I wanted Juan Pablo to feel the same pain I felt when I lost my father." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with decades of secrets and pain. Maria and Rosalinda exchanged glances, understanding that the path to healing would be long and difficult. The truth was finally exposed, but its ramifications were more complex than either of them could have imagined. After the shocking revelations from Esteban, Rosalinda felt lost in a sea of conflicting emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal threatened to engulf her. It was in this moment of vulnerability that she turned to her mother, seeking anchor amidst the storm. Maria, sensing her daughter's internal struggle, wrapped Rosalinda in a protective embrace. "My dear," she whispered, "you're stronger than this. Stronger than Esteban's manipulation. Stronger even than your father's mistakes." Rosalinda, tears in her eyes, looked at her mother. "How can I trust anyone again, Mom? How can I trust myself after being so easily manipulated?" Maria cupped Rosalinda's face in her hands, her eyes conveying unshakable strength. "By trusting yourself, one day at a time. You're not defined by others' mistakes, not even your own. You're defined by how you choose to stand up and move forward." Those words penetrated deep into Rosalinda. Slowly, she began to remember who she was before Esteban entered her life, a strong, independent woman with dreams. With each memory, she felt Esteban's influence diminish. "I won't let him control me anymore," Rosalinda declared, her voice gaining strength. "I'm not a pawn in his revenge against Dad." Maria smiled, proud. "That's the spirit, my love. Together we'll overcome this." In that moment, mother and daughter formed an unbreakable alliance. Rosalinda, inspired by her mother's strength and unconditional love, found the courage to definitively break free from Esteban's toxic influence. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with Maria by her side, she felt capable of facing any obstacle. With Rosalinda finally free from Esteban's influence, Maria felt it was time to reveal a truth she had carried for years. Sitting in the garden of the Montero home, where so many happy memories had been made, Maria held her daughter's hands and took a deep breath. "Rosalinda, there's something I need to tell you," Maria began, her voice soft but firm. "Years ago, when I found out I was sick, I made a promise to your father, a promise that became my life's mission." Rosalinda listened intently, intrigued by the seriousness in her mother's tone. Maria continued, "I promised Juan Pablo that no matter what happened, I would always protect you, that I would do everything in my power to ensure your safety and happiness, even if it meant going against Juan Pablo himself." Tears began to form in Rosalinda's eyes. "Mom, I knew your father carried secrets, Maria explained. I didn't know the details, but I could feel their weight, and I feared that one day those secrets might threaten you. That's why I've always been so vigilant, why I never gave up on you, even when you seemed to drift away. Rosalinda, emotional, hugged her mother. You never failed in that promise, Mom. Even when I didn't realize it, you were always there, protecting me. Maria smiled through her tears. And I always will be, my love. No matter what happens, no matter what truths still come to light about your father's past, my love and protection for you are unwavering. In that moment, Rosalinda truly understood the depth of her mother's love. Maria's promise wasn't just words, it was a force that had guided her actions for years, a dedication that had, in the end, saved Rosalinda from a terrible fate. Thank you, Mom, Rosalinda whispered, for everything. In the days that followed the shocking revelations, Rosalinda went through an emotional roller coaster. Moments of intense anger alternated with periods of deep sadness and confusion. However, amid the chaos, one constant remained: her mother, Maria's unwavering support. One morning, as they shared coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise, Rosalinda felt a change within herself. Looking at Maria, she spoke with renewed determination. Mom, I don't want the past to define my future. I want to rebuild my life, to start over. Maria smiled, her eyes filled with pride. I'm so happy to hear that, my dear. Where do you want to start? Rosalinda thought for a moment. First, I want to go back to painting. Not the dark images Esteban made me create, but beautiful things, full of hope. That's wonderful, Maria encouraged. What else? I want to reconnect with my old friends, the ones I pushed away during my marriage to Esteban. And maybe it's time to consider resuming my art studies. Maria nodded, her expression full of support. Every step you take, I'll be by your side. In the days and weeks that followed, Rosalinda, with Maria's constant support, began to implement her ideas. She transformed an empty room in the house into a bright studio, filling it with blank canvases that promised new beginnings. Slowly, she started reconnecting with old friends, finding forgiveness and understanding where she had feared rejection. Maria was there every step of the way, offering words of encouragement, a shoulder to cry on when memories became too overwhelming, and celebrating every small victory. As the days passed, Rosalinda felt stronger, more confident. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with her mother by her side and a renewed determination in her heart, she felt ready to face any obstacle. The final confrontation with Esteban took place on a rainy afternoon, the gray sky reflecting the tense atmosphere that hung over the Montero family's living room. Rosalinda, strengthened by her mother's support and the newly uncovered truth, faced her manipulator with a courage that even surprised herself. It's over, Esteban, Rosalinda declared, her voice firm. I know everything now, about you, about my father, about your lies and manipulations. For the first time since she had known him, Esteban seemed genuinely shaken. His eyes, once full of confidence and calculated charm, now revealed a mixture of anger and fear. You don't understand, Rosalinda, he tried to argue. Everything I did was for justice. My father made mistakes, Rosalinda interrupted. Terrible mistakes. But using me as a pawn in your revenge, that makes you just as bad as him, if not worse. Maria, who had been silently observing, noticed a subtle change in Esteban's posture. It was as if, faced with Rosalinda's newfound strength, his facade was beginning to crumble. Esteban looked from Rosalinda to Maria, then back to Rosalinda. Slowly, comprehension seemed to dawn on him. He had lost control of the situation. You really aren't coming back to me, are you? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rosalinda shook her head. Never again, Esteban. It's over. For a moment, silence reigned in the room. Then, with a defeated sigh, Esteban stood up. I see, he said, his voice carrying an emotion Rosalinda couldn't quite decipher. I guess there's nothing left for me here. Without another word, Esteban walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time, his eyes meeting Rosalinda's. For a brief moment, she saw a glimpse of the man she thought she had loved. Then he was gone, leaving behind only the sound of the rain and a silence filled with possibilities. The months following Esteban's departure were a time of transformation for Maria and Rosalinda. Like the first flowers that bloom after a harsh winter, signs of healing and hope began to emerge in their lives. Rosalinda threw herself into her art, using painting as a form of therapy and self-discovery. Her studio, once a place of nightmares induced by Esteban, became a sanctuary of creativity and healing. The canvases, once dominated by dark tones and disturbing images, now exploded with vibrant colors and scenes of rebirth. Maria, for her part, found a new mission. Inspired by her daughter's journey, she began working with a support group for women who had experienced abusive relationships. Her experience and compassion made her a source of strength for many who were just beginning their healing journey. Together, mother and daughter faced the challenge of reconciling with Juan Pablo. They had difficult conversations, full of tears and painful truths, but also of forgiveness and understanding. Juan Pablo, confronted with his past, showed genuine remorse and a sincere desire to make amends with his family and his past. As time passed, the Montero household, once a battlefield of secrets and manipulations, became a home of honesty and healing. Family dinners, once tense and filled with unspoken words, turned into moments of genuine connection and shared laughter. Rosalinda, encouraged by Maria, decided to organize an exhibition of her new works. The opening night was a resounding success, with the gallery packed with friends, family, and art admirers. The highlight of the exhibition was a large, luminous canvas titled Rebirth, depicting a phoenix rising from the ashes, its wings stretched out in a dawn sky. Maria, watching her daughter confidently and joyfully interact with the guests, felt her heart swell with pride and love. She knew the path to complete healing was still long, but every smile from Rosalinda, every brushstroke filled with hope, was a step in that direction. One night, as they shared a cup of tea on the porch, gazing at the stars, Rosalinda turned to her mother with bright eyes. "You know, Mom," she said softly, "despite everything we've been through, I feel like we're stronger now, more true to ourselves and to each other." Maria smiled, holding her daughter's hand. "That's true, my love. Sometimes we need to go through the fire to emerge stronger and brighter." As the night wore on, mother and daughter remained there in comfortable silence, their hearts filled with gratitude for the love that united them and the strength they had discovered together. The future, once so uncertain and frightening, now glowed with the promise of better days, painted in the vibrant colors of hope and renewal. Maria and Rosalinda settled into a peaceful routine. Mornings began with shared coffee, afternoons were dedicated to personal pursuits, and evenings were for reflection. They rediscovered joy in the little things, creating an atmosphere of peace and security in their home. The family renovated the house together, each room reflecting hope and new beginnings. Photos of happy moments adorned the walls, and the garden came to life again. The house transformed into a welcoming refuge, symbolizing the renewal of family bonds. Rosalinda devoted herself to painting, exploring themes of rebirth and strength. Her studio became a space of creativity and healing. She organized a successful exhibition, her works reflecting her personal journey and inspiring others. Maria remained by Rosalinda's side, offering unconditional support. She celebrated every accomplishment, big or small. Her constant presence and unwavering love were crucial to Rosalinda's continued growth and confidence. The Montero family rebuilt their bonds on honesty and mutual understanding. Open conversations replaced secrets. Love and forgiveness prevailed, creating a stronger and more authentic family dynamic. Free from Esteban's manipulations, Rosalinda rediscovered her true self. She developed healthy relationships, pursued her dreams with confidence, and found genuine joy in her newfound independence. The chapter ended with Maria and Rosalinda sharing a moment of gratitude. They looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face new challenges together, strengthened by the love and resilience they had discovered on their journey.